start today's news at noon with breaking news. The verdict is in for the man who started a huge apartment fire near downtown Portland last year.
About 90 minutes ago, a jury found Garrett Rep guilty on 54 of the 55 charges. Thank you for joining us. I'm China Green.
And I'm Drew Carney. Closing arguments in this case were delivered yesterday, and it didn't take long for the jury to reach its verdict today. The fire at the May Apartments on Southwest 14th and Taylor happened last May. Firefighters spent hours putting it out. Many people who lived there lost everything they owned, and the building was eventually torn down. Rep had been evicted from his apartment, and sheriff's deputies were planning to remove him from the building the day of the fire. But just before they got there, investigators say Rep used an accelerant to set his apartment on fire, and it quickly spread to the rest of the building. KGW's John Adams was in court this morning for the verdict. He'll have much more on this story for us later this afternoon on KGW News at 4. Also this afternoon, the city of Portland is warning some of its residents about what's described as predatory towing.
In Northeast Portland, more than 100 cars were towed in a 6-month period. Our Thomas Schultz joins us in the newsroom. So Thomas, which communities are being impacted here?
Well, guys, the Ombudsman's office says these tows are happening to tenants in Northeast Portland's Coley neighborhood, a property owned by Hacienda CDC. Caddy corner to Northeast Coley and Killingsworth sit these low-income townhomes. And for a year and a half, Portland Ombudsman's office says residents have dealt with predatory towing.
It's a problem that I think Portland needs to deal with.
Deputy Ombudsman Tony Green says towing is happening in the middle of the night, likely without permission from apartment management, which is illegal. Some tows are by a company called Retriever Towing, which was sued by the state last year for violating towing laws. All signs are also in English only, even though many residents are not native English speakers.
That's one issue that seemed like a fairly easy one to fix, but it hasn't been done yet.
And from mid-June 2023 until late December of last year, 178 vehicles were towed, the most anywhere throughout the city.
There are legitimate parking issues, but towing is a very harsh penalty.
We reached out to Hacienda CDC for an interview. We never heard back. Though these harsh penalties are being handed out to some of the city's most vulnerable people, and it's being done at apartment complexes that Portland helped out by providing $16 million in construction loans to boost up affordable housing.
It's disappointing. These are people who the city is trying to help. We have a homeless crisis, and here are some people low income in their housing, and they're being undermined by having their vehicles towed.
And tows can be devastating. The Ombudsman report found one tow cost nearly half a month's rent at studio apartments in this building. And daily storage fees in a tow yard can increase costs of recovering a vehicle. If residents can't afford the fees, vehicles are auctioned off, further hampering tenants and prolonging hardship the city is trying to solve.
When you destabilize people, you can end up having them evicted, and then the city's efforts are wasted.
And now the Ombudsman is recommending several things, like adding signage in Spanish and giving people a warning on their first offense. Drew?
All right, Thomas Schultz reporting live for us this afternoon in the newsroom. Meanwhile, in Vancouver, the police officer who pulled a suspect's pants down and threatened to use a taser on their genitals has been suspended. Earlier this year, a jury found Officer Andrea Mendoza not guilty of assault. But Vancouver's police department says she's been suspended for 5 days for violating use of force policies. Mendoza will also have to undergo counseling sessions and training for discourteous conduct.
Tonight, the Gresham High School Student Union will attend a school board meeting to urge the board to appoint a new principal. This comes after a 17-year-old student was arrested on Friday, September 20th, for allegedly threatening a person with a gun outside the school and then brought the gun inside. According to the student union, even though school administrators knew there was a loaded gun on campus, the school was not placed on lockdown. Now, students and staff say that they're concerned over school leaders' ability to handle safety concerns. Tonight's meeting is at 7, and students say that they are now planning to walk out of classes tomorrow.
The Portland man who drove through barricades and nearly hit several people along the Grand Floral Parade route last year has been sentenced to 5 years in prison. 43-year-old Sidney Meekum pleaded guilty to 2 felony counts of unlawful use of a weapon, along with 16 misdemeanors. Dashcam video recorded from inside his truck showed Meekum blowing past roadblocks and refusing to stop.
I want to reassure everyone this was not a planned attack on Portland or the Rose Parade. This was poor planning and impulsive thinking.
Meekum told the courtroom he was ashamed of his actions and truly sorry for the pain and fear he caused to hundreds of children and their families that day.
All right, let's take a look at weather with Celine Stevens now, giving us the forecast. Hello, Celine.
Hi, China. Yeah, it's looking great out there right now. Take a look at the Rose City. We're looking at clear skies, of course. Temperatures today cooler than what we saw yesterday, but we're sitting at 62 at the moment. Winds only going north at 7 miles per hour, and same along the coast. Cooler than here, of course, in Portland, but temperatures upper 50s. We're seeing those winds coming out of the west at 4 miles per hour. And across the map at the moment, we're seeing 62 in Vancouver. We're looking down south to the southern parts of the state. Temperatures a little bit warmer. We're looking at 71 in Medford. Looks like 74 in Klamath Falls, and along the coast, 50s, low 60s in North Bend. But as we get into the rest of our day, temperatures are going to warm up just a little bit. We're looking at seeing upper 60s by around 4 p.m. We're hitting 68 degrees. By the time we get to a little bit later in the evening, 7 p.m., we drop back down into the lower 60s. But here's what everybody's looking for. So we're looking great the next couple of days, and then here comes Friday. We have low pressure moving in. We're going to be seeing that rain hit the area around Friday night. First, of course, hitting the coast. Expect the coast to see around 4/10 to around 7/10 of an inch of rain. That's again Friday evening. By the time we get to midnight, that's hitting us here in Portland, Longview, all the way further up north as well. Good news is weekend clears up. Things are looking nice and warm and sunny. I'll have more in your full forecast.
Meanwhile, with just over a month to go before the presidential election, the candidates for vice president met last night on the debate stage.
There's the first and only debate between Democratic Governor Tim Walz and Republican Senator J.D. Vance. So they touched on topics like Iran's attack on Israel, inflation, health care, the economy, gun violence, and immigration. And here's how Senator Vance responded to a question about former President Donald Trump calling for the mass deportations of migrants.
We've got 25 million illegal aliens who are here in the country. What do we do with them? I think the first thing that we do is we start with the criminal migrants. About 1 million of those people have committed some form of crime in addition to crossing the border illegally. I think you start with deportations on those folks. And then I think you make it harder for illegal aliens to undercut the wages of American workers. A lot of people will go home if they can't work for less than minimum wage in our own country. And by the way, that'll be really good for our workers who just want to earn a fair wage for doing a good day's work.
Governor Walz responded by pressing Vance on his false claims about Haitian migrants in Springfield, Ohio.
This is what happens when you don't want to solve it. You demonize it. And we saw this. And Senator Vance, and it surprises me on this, talking about and saying, I will create stories to bring attention to this. That vilified a large number of people who were here legally in the community of Springfield. The Republican governor said, it's not true. Don't do it. There's consequences for this. There's consequences. We could come together. Senator Langford did it. We could come together and solve this if we didn't let Donald Trump continue to make it an issue.
Ballots for Oregon voters hit the mail in 2 weeks on Wednesday, October 16th. Washington ballots will go out 2 days later.
Portland police are preparing for protests and the possibility of destructive violence on election night. 8 years ago, after Donald Trump won the presidency, protesters staged nightly street takeovers, blocking roads and freeways, rioting, and throwing bottles and flares at officers. 4 years later, when President Biden won the election, things were more peaceful. But the night of President Biden's inauguration in January of 2021, far-left protesters hit the Democratic Party's Portland headquarters, smashing the windows and tagging walls. To help with policing this time around, the Bureau's rapid response team is back after a 3-year hiatus, and Police Chief Bob Day says he's canceling days off with staff working mandatory 12-hour shifts.
My message to those that intend to engage in criminal behavior is that we will be interdicting that behavior. We will be stepping in, we'll be making arrests, we'll be recommending cases for prosecution.
It's also worth noting that Portland police numbers are still down. Right now, the Bureau has about 800 sworn members. There were more than 1,000 5 years ago before the pandemic.
In 2 weeks, KGW will partner with the Oregonian to host a debate featuring the top candidates in the race for Portland mayor. And we're looking for questions from you. You can email a short video with a question for the candidates to debate@kgw.com. You could also scan the QR code on your screen right there for details. Then tune in on Tuesday, October 15th at 6:30 p.m., either here on TV, online, or on KGW.com.